If you've seen in the press recently that all publicans over here in the United Kingdom and probably around the world are all basically saying how they're not going to be able to serve as a pint for less than possibly £15. That's right. And they don't know in fact how they're going to keep their public houses open, or pubs to you and me. This is because of the increasing costs of energy, electricity, gas, all the usual things, plus the food delivered, you name it, everything's going to go up. So it's a very tough time for pubs, as one can imagine. Not quite sure exactly how they're going to get through this crisis. And let's face it, pubs used to be part of our local community. It was the area where everybody congregated to sit and have a natter, a gossip, sit around a warm fire and basically just chew the fat. Nowadays, of course, it's gastropubs, isn't it? Where you can get fancy food, cappuccino, and more importantly, even vegan coffee. That's right. But has this sort of swift away from all of that made it now incredibly difficult for the publican to survive? As ever, let me explain. About you, but I used to love looking at pub signs, you know, those very famous and well-crafted hand-painted signs that you went past and looked up and thought, where did that name come from? Who decided to put that in the stone? And normally it's been there for about 100 years plus, hasn't it? As long as the pub has been able to survive. Well, all that's changed now because apparently in this new 21st century woke world, we have to get rid of some of the names that we've seen for over 100 years. And it's interesting, isn't it? In this crisis time, even the major publicans like Green King and many others are really ticking a box to make sure that they don't offend the wokeness. Now, what I find incredible about this is the sort of customers that they're trying to apply to simply wouldn't go into a pub, not even for a cup of coffee. It doesn't matter what you do, it's not their background, if you get my drift. So really, apart from the occasional soft drink, they're willing to let go, well, lots of revenue in the name of keeping everything, well, shall we say, tick-boxy, cancel culture, wokeness. The major chains over here in the United Kingdom is a company called Green King, and they decided just over a year ago that they were going to have to rename some of their public houses so that they didn't upset the minority. Now, how they got round this was they had a public vote online, and then people could decide, for instance, what they wanted the pub to be called. This was because they didn't want any sort of association with anything, you know, to do with racial indifference. You get the picture. So, for instance, in Bury St Edmunds, there'd been a pub there for many years called the Black Boy Inn. Now that's been renamed the West Gate. Up in Derbyshire, they had the Black Headed pub. That's now been named the Quarrymen. Now this is all, as I say, because people allegedly were offended. We're not quite sure who, but they don't want any sort of colonialism, anything to do with our past. And again, you see, we're wiping out our past just to supplement a minority few who apparently are going to shape our future. Now, what I always say here on the show is it's up to you. You make your choices. You decide where you're going to spend your money. But isn't it strange, as I say, that in this climate where they're desperate for every penny, claiming that many won't survive and pubs will close down, first of all, they waste money on this. You know, they decide to do a survey to see who's offended. And then they make a big spectacle of this with costs of thousands of pounds changing the hand-painted signs that have hung there for years, just of course to make sure they tick that right box. All the while, their tills remain empty. As ever, let me know what you think to this particular breaking story in the comments below. Would it bother you? Is it really that important? Or more importantly, is it once again a tick in the box for the people who love the world of woke? Neil Sean in the very heart of London.